A millionaire pretending to be poor sits at the wrong table on a blind date, and accidentally finds the family he never knew he needed, where one unexpected mix-up could lead to a lifetime of meaning. Before we jump into this heartwarming story, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy emotional stories with real-life twists, make sure to subscribe. We've got another one coming tomorrow that'll tug at your heartstrings. Let's begin. The lights from Rusty Spoon Diner shimmered on the rain-slicked pavement as Caleb Thompson adjusted the collar of his weather jacket. At 45, the Portland real estate mogul didn't look anything like the man he was pretending to be tonight. Gone were the tailored suits and luxury cars. Tonight, he drove a rusty old truck and wore sneakers scuffed enough to tell a believable story. Standing beside him was his 7-year-old daughter, Layla, clutching her stuffed rabbit and grinning up at him. "You ready to be my partner in crime?" he asked, holding out his hand. Layla giggled. "Always, Daddy." It was the first date Caleb had agreed to since losing his wife 5 years ago. He wasn't looking for anyone special, just someone real. Someone who wouldn't see dollar signs before seeing him. His sister had set up the blind date. "Table 12, she'd said. But between Layla's excited chatter about dessert and his own nerves, Caleb got it wrong. He walked to table 10. There, a woman with tired eyes and a soft smile sat across from a boy around Layla's age. "Hi, I'm Caleb. I'm not rich," he said with a grin. "But I've got good intentions." Emily Carter had only come to Rusty Spoon Diner that night to cheer up her son. After a rough week juggling her job at a local insurance office and barely keeping up with bills, she thought a quiet dinner might lift both their spirits. She never expected a stranger to walk up, pull out a chair, and start talking like he belonged. The man, Caleb, wasn't what she expected. He had kind eyes, a kind of confident awkwardness, and something about the way he talked made her pause. Maybe it was how gently he spoke to her son, Noah, or how naturally he laughed at Layla's jokes. "I'm a rideshare driver," Caleb said, fiddling with his napkin. "Not much money, but we've got plenty of laughs in our apartment the size of a shoebox." Layla chimed in, "We eat grilled cheese like all the time." Noah lit up. "Can we be neighbors?" Emily blinked. Who was this man? Everything about him screamed contradiction. His clothes were plain, but his watch was definitely not something you'd find on a discount rack. His posture was polished, too put together for someone living on cup noodles. Still, his warmth was disarming, and Noah hadn't smiled that wide in weeks. Caleb ordered 2 kids' meals and the cheapest thing on the menu for himself. Emily matched his order, half out of politeness, half out of curiosity. As they ate, Caleb told goofy stories about traffic jams and how his fridge rattles louder than his old truck. Layla and Noah giggled uncontrollably. Emily laughed too, really laughed. She couldn't remember the last time someone had made her forget about overdue bills or her ex who hadn't called in 3 years. Midway through dessert, Caleb leaned back and said, "You know, this might be the most fun I've had in a long time." Then Emily said it, the words she was scared to speak, "I think you've got the wrong table." The look on his face changed instantly. His eyes widened. His shoulders stiffened. He turned to check the table number, and saw the tiny plaque, Table 10. "Oh. Wow. I'm so sorry," he stammered. "I was supposed to be at table 12. Layla looked crushed. "But Daddy, I like them." Emily's heart twisted. She should have been angry. But when she looked at Layla's hopeful eyes, and Caleb's embarrassed expression, she found herself saying something she never thought she would. "Would you like to stay? I mean, we're already halfway through dessert." Caleb blinked, then smiled softly. "If it's not too much trouble. I think Noah would love that." Noah cheered, "We're a family now." The people at the next table chuckled. Emily's cheeks flushed, but she didn't correct the boy. Instead, she let the laughter continue, not knowing that a mistaken table would be the first real step towards something that neither of them had expected. But both desperately needed. A week after the diner mix-up, Caleb sent Emily a casual text. "Thinking about grabbing ice cream at the park this Saturday. Thought of you and Noah. No pressure." Emily stared at the message for 5 minutes. Her instinct said, "Be cautious," but her heart whispered, "Say yes." And so she did. That Saturday afternoon, under the golden Oregon sun, they met at Cedar Grove Park. Layla and Noah immediately darted off toward the playground, laughter trailing behind them. Emily arrived wearing jeans and a soft blue sweater. No makeup. Just her. Caleb noticed, and couldn't stop smiling. He spread out a blanket and unpacked sandwiches, apple slices, and 2 juice boxes that had leaked just enough to make the bag sticky. "I was going for Pinterest perfect," he joked. "Instead, I give you reality with a side of soggy napkins." Emily laughed. "This is more my speed anyway." They talked. Not about jobs or dating apps or awkward past relationships, just life. Childhood memories. Favorite books. Dumb things their kid said. For a moment, it felt like the world had paused and allowed them to breathe. But as the sun began to dip lower, a black luxury sedan rolled up near the parking lot. The kind of vehicle that didn't belong at a quiet local park. The driver stepped out, opened the back door with military precision. And Caleb, without thinking, started to walk toward it. Emily watched, puzzled. The man inside nodded to Caleb as if greeting an old friend. Caleb caught himself mid-step, spun around, and returned to the blanket far too quickly. Emily narrowed her eyes. "That your car?" He shook his head, a little too fast. "Nah. I used to drive for events. Just admiring a nice vehicle, that's all." Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The doubt had slipped in. Later that evening, as the kids ran through the grass pretending to be superheroes, Emily sat beside Caleb with her arms wrapped around her knees. "You're not just some regular guy, are you?" she asked quietly. Caleb looked straight ahead. "What makes you say that?" "The way you carry yourself. That suit you wore at the diner, it wasn't thrift store material. And the way people looked at you today. Like they knew you." Caleb hesitated. He could lie again. Keep the illusion alive. But Layla's laughter rang in the background, and he thought about the cost of keeping up the mask. "I just want someone to see me without the headlines," he finally said. "I didn't come into this with bad intentions." Emily didn't press him further. Not yet. But the seed of doubt had been planted. As they packed up and said goodbye, Noah tugged at Caleb's arm and said, "Next time, can we bring board games?" Caleb ruffled his hair. "Absolutely." Emily stood in silence, torn between what felt true and what didn't quite add up. She didn't know it yet, but this small crack in the story was just the beginning of a much bigger reveal. The days that followed were confusing. Emily couldn't shake the image of Caleb almost getting into that luxury sedan. It gnawed at her like a quiet warning. Still, Noah hadn't stopped smiling since their picnic. He was drawing pictures of Layla and Caleb at school, calling Caleb the almost dad when he thought Emily wasn't listening. One afternoon, Emily sat at a cafe with her coworker Rachel, a single mom herself with a sharp eye for detail. "He says he's a rideshare driver," Emily explained, stirring her lukewarm coffee. But he talks like a CEO. Dresses too well. And Layla? That little girl's backpack is designer. I checked. Rachel raised an eyebrow. What's his last name? Thompson, Emily replied. Caleb Thompson. Rachel froze, her spoon hovering midair. Wait, Caleb Thompson. Are you sure? Emily shrugged. Pretty sure. Rachel pulled out her phone and started typing. Within seconds, she turned the screen toward Emily. There, on a glossy business site, was a photo of Caleb in a tuxedo, standing beside a mayor, accepting some civic award. The headline read, Portland's real estate powerhouse, Caleb Thompson expands his empire. Emily's stomach dropped. She stared at the man in the photo. It was definitely Caleb. Except this Caleb wasn't eating peanut butter sandwiches in the park. He was attending galas, launching luxury properties, shaking hands with senators. Emily left the cafe in a haze. That night, she barely slept. She watched Noah fall asleep with his favorite drawing, Caleb, Layla, her, and him standing under a giant, happy family, banner, and felt a storm rise in her chest. Betrayal. Confusion. And worst of all, heartbreak. But even as the truth settled heavily over her, part of her remembered the man who helped Noah build a paper airplane from a napkin. The man who danced in the park to no music. The man who never bragged, never acted superior, who actually seemed to enjoy the simplicity of ice cream cones and sticky juice boxes. Was that all just an act? The next day was Layla's birthday. Caleb had invited Emily and Noah to a modest party at a small community center on the edge of town, balloons, cupcakes, streamers, and a dozen giggling kids. Emily almost didn't go. But Noah insisted, practically dragging her out the door. At the party, everything looked normal. Real. Homemade. Until a tall woman in designer heels strolled in like she owned the room. Caleb, she called out, kissing him on both cheeks. Still celebrating the little moments, I see. Emily stood frozen across the room. I didn't think you still visited the old neighborhoods, the woman added with a smirk, her voice laced with judgment. That was it. Emily turned to Noah. Sweetheart, we need to go. But the cake? He asked, confused. I'm sorry, baby, she whispered, trying to steady her voice. We just have to. As they walked out the door, Emily didn't look back. Not even once. But Caleb did. And when he realized she was gone, he knew. Everything was starting to fall apart. The next morning, Caleb stood in his high-rise condo staring out at the city skyline, yet all he could see was the look on Emily's face as she walked out of Layla's party, betrayed, disappointed, done. Layla sat on the couch, hugging her teddy bear. Daddy, she asked softly, is Miss Emily mad at us? Caleb knelt beside her. Maybe. But not at you, sweetheart. Grown-ups mess things up sometimes. Layla tilted her head. Can't you just say you're sorry? He smiled faintly. I'm going to try. That same day, Emily sat in her modest apartment, staring at her phone. Noah was busy coloring another family picture, completely unaware of the emotional storm brewing just a few feet away. She had blocked Caleb's number the night before, impulse, anger, but now she kept unlocking her screen, hovering over his name in her contacts. A knock at the door pulled her out of her spiral. It was a delivery man. In his hands, a giant bouquet of wildflowers. Attached was a simple, handwritten note. Let me explain. No lies. No suits. Just me. Caleb. Emily didn't take the flowers. She just closed the door. But the next evening, while watching Noah sleep peacefully in her arms, she whispered to the empty room, what if he meant it? She didn't want to go back. But she also didn't want to walk away without knowing if something real had been buried beneath the lie. 2 days passed. Then a message came from an unknown number. Cedar Grove Park. Saturday. Just talk. Bring Noah if you'd like. I'll come alone. Saturday arrived, cool and quiet. Emily didn't dress up. She didn't tell Noah where they were going, just that they'd be meeting someone. She told herself she wasn't forgiving him, just listening. At the park, she found Caleb sitting on the same picnic blanket from their first outing. But this time, no fancy basket. No rehearsed story. Just a man in jeans and a wrinkled hoodie, holding 2 coffee cups from the corner cafe. He stood when he saw her. Thank you for coming. Emily stayed quiet for a moment. Then, why didn't you tell me the truth? Caleb exhaled slowly. Because the moment I met you, I didn't feel like Caleb Thompson the developer. I felt human. Normal. Like I could laugh about grilled cheese and silly cartoons without someone wanting something from me. You had so many chances to be honest, she replied. I know, he said, nodding. And every time I tried, I froze, afraid that if I said it out loud, you'd see the person everyone else sees. The one you'd never let in. Emily looked down at the grass, emotions bubbling. Then she said softly, I'm not asking for perfection, Caleb. I'm asking for truth. He stepped closer, but not too close. Then here it is, I fell in love with you. Not because of what you are. But because of how you make me feel like what I am is enough. The wind rustled through the trees. Noah laughed in the distance with Layla. Emily's voice cracked. This doesn't fix everything. I don't expect it to, Caleb said. I just hope. It's a start. Over the next week, things didn't return to normal, but something new began. Caleb sent a message every morning. Just one. Sometimes it was a joke Layla had made up. Sometimes a photo of his failed attempt at cooking something normal, like mac and cheese. Other times, it was just, hope today's a little lighter for you. Emily didn't always respond. But she read every word. One Thursday afternoon, Noah came home from school with an invitation. His class was putting on a spring presentation, and each student could invite a parent or special guest. Can Caleb come? He asked, eyes wide, hopeful. Emily hesitated. She hadn't told him anything. To Noah, Caleb was still the goofy man who taught him how to fold a napkin into a spaceship. I'll think about it, she said, brushing his hair back gently. Later that night, after Noah fell asleep, Emily sent a message to Caleb. Noah's school play is next Friday. He wants you to come. If you say yes, be on time. Caleb's reply came instantly. Wouldn't miss it for the world. That Friday evening, the school auditorium buzzed with parents holding phones and awkwardly fitting into 2 small seats. Caleb arrived early, wearing jeans, a simple button-down, and holding a bouquet of wildflowers that looked like they'd been picked from a roadside stand. He found Emily and sat beside her without a word. But the energy between them had changed. Quieter. Safer. When Noah stepped on stage, dressed as a talking sunflower, he scanned the audience. His face lit up the moment he saw Caleb. Caleb smiled back, recording every second, as if Noah were performing on Broadway. After the show, as the crowd spilled into the parking lot, Noah ran to Caleb, wrapping his arms around his legs. Did you see me? I didn't forget my line. You were amazing, Caleb said, scooping him up. Emily watched them, this strange, beautiful picture of what could be. On the drive home, Caleb walked them to their door. Thank you, he said, his voice lower than usual. For letting me be part of today. You showed up, Emily said. That matters. I want to keep showing up, he added. Not as the man with a portfolio, but as the man who burns garlic bread, forgets umbrella days, and wants to help with homework. Emily looked at him for a long time. Then keep doing that, she replied. But don't expect guarantees. I'm not, Caleb said. But I'll earn them, one truth at a time. That weekend, Caleb did something unexpected. He moved temporarily into the old apartment he hadn't lived in since before the success. A cramped one-bedroom walk-up near the bus line, with a flickering hallway light and no dishwasher. He texted Emily a picture of his first attempt at laundry, his dress shirt tangled in pink bedsheets. Day 1 of living real. So far, one broken mug and a very pink collar. Emily laughed out loud. And for the first time since that mistaken dinner table, she started to believe again, not in the fairy tale, but in something better, a man willing to grow for love. One Saturday morning, Caleb picked up Emily and Noah in a beat-up rental SUV with a picnic basket in the trunk and Layla already buckled in, humming along to a kid's playlist. The destination? A surprise. Emily didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. Trust wasn't fully restored, but something close to hope had taken its place. After an hour's drive, they turned off onto a gravel road that led to a quiet stretch of forest. Tucked between the trees was a small cabin, wooden, weathered, and full of stories. No gates, no marble, no security cameras. Caleb parked, turned to Emily, and said softly, "This belonged to my grandparents. Before the suits. Before the towers downtown. This was my favorite place in the world." Noah and Layla raced toward the backyard, where a worn tire swing still hung from an old oak. Caleb led Emily to the porch, where 2 chipped coffee mugs rested on the railing. "Why are we here?" she asked gently. He looked out toward the trees. "Because it's where I remember who I really am. And because I wanted to share that with the people I hope will become my forever." The kids ran barefoot through grass, chasing fireflies as the sun slipped behind the mountains. Later, they all gathered around a crackling fire pit, roasting marshmallows and telling made-up ghost stories. It wasn't fancy. But it was real. That night, after the kids fell asleep inside the cabin, Emily and Caleb sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, listening to the crickets. "You've changed," she said quietly. "I'm trying," he replied. "You're still not perfect. I'm counting on it." She smiled. Then Caleb pulled a small velvet box from his coat pocket. But this time, he didn't open it. "I'm not asking you to say yes tonight. Or even next week," he said, voice steady. "I'm just asking you to take this as a promise. That I'll keep choosing us, one day at a time." Emily reached out and held the box in her hand. She didn't open it either. Instead, she rested her head on his shoulder. "I'm not ready for fairy tales," she whispered. "But I am ready for something real." "I can work with that," Caleb said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. In the weeks that followed, their new life took root in the smallest ways. Grocery runs with the kids. Messy pancake breakfasts. Late-night talks in worn-out sweatpants. Laughter and laundry. Imperfect, everyday magic. And one day, at that same diner where it all began, Emily looked across the table at Caleb and said, "I'm glad you sat at the wrong table." Caleb laughed. Best mistake I ever made. They toasted with orange juice, while Layla and Noah argued over who would win in a race, Wonder Woman or Spider-Man. And as the sun lit up the diner windows, their little family, formed from one misstep and a whole lot of heart, continued forward. No fairy tales. No filters. Just love. Sometimes, the greatest blessings come from the most unexpected mistakes. Caleb sat at the wrong table, and it changed his life. Not because he found someone who was impressed by his wealth, but because he met someone who valued what truly mattered: honesty, kindness, and consistency. Emily wasn't looking for a savior. She wanted someone who showed up, not with promises, but with presence. In a world obsessed with appearances, their story reminds us that authenticity is rare and powerful. Love doesn't require perfection, it asks for effort, vulnerability, and the courage to keep trying even after we mess up. The moment Caleb dropped the mask and chose to be real was the moment everything began to shift. Not just for him, but for the family he was slowly, patiently building. In the end, it wasn't about riches, it was about relationships. And sometimes, all it takes is sitting at the wrong table to finally find the right people. Speech balloon. What do you think about Caleb and Emily's journey? Do you believe love can grow from unexpected mistakes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more heartwarming tales like this one.